Hey everybody, Mike here from DIY AquaPros. Today I'll be reviewing the CO2 regulator made by Aquatek, California. Now Aquatek makes a few different regulators, but this is the one you're most likely going to want if you're planning to use a standard CO2 tank. They do make a mini regulator specifically for those using a smaller paintball CO2 cylinder, but I haven't had a chance to try them out yet. When using a standard 5 or 10 pound CO2 cylinder, you still have a couple choices from Aquatek. There's a basic version and a premium version that I'll be reviewing today, and they're both pretty similar. As far as I can tell, there aren't any major differences regarding functionality, just some aesthetic differences. There's also a deluxe version that features an additional pressure gauge, but I hear the gauge isn't very applicable to aquarium use because you're not going to be pumping enough CO2 through it to actually read anything. It's designed for indoor garden use where much more CO2 is required. All of Aquatek's regulators are made from a high quality brass and feature a solenoid attachment that's going to allow you to turn gas flow on and off via a timer, which is really handy. You have two gauges here, one for working pressure and the other for tank pressure. There's a fine adjustment knob here on the end that's going to allow for good control over the gas that's permitted to enter your bubble counter and eventually your aquarium. Now when you buy a premium or deluxe model, most of the time they come with a bubble counter that features an integrated check valve. We'll check this thing out a little bit later. Before you set up your regulator, you're also going to need a few other things: CO2 proof tubing and of course a CO2 tank, both of which you'll have to purchase separately. Now let's hook up our system. First, make sure your CO2 tank is completely closed. Grab your regulator and make sure the working pressure knob is all the way to the left, which is closed. It's sort of counterintuitive, but that's just how these regulators work. Also make sure the fine adjustment or needle valve is tightly closed. Screw the regulator onto the tank hand tight and then grab a wrench to make sure it's snug. You can now test your system for leaks by opening your CO2 tank all the way and then opening the working pressure valve. Listen for any hissing and or spray the regulator down with some soapy water to test for smaller leaks. I don't have any issues here, but it's always a good thing to check. Close everything back up and now you're ready to continue. Grab a length of your CO2 proof tubing and remove this small brass nut. This is where you're going to plug in your tubing that will lead to the bubble counter. Slip the nut back on and lock it down to securely hold the tubing in place. Now let's check out this bubble counter that came with our regulator. It's pretty small and doesn't feel like the best, but hey, it's a little add-on, so we're going to give it a shot. It comes with both a clamp attachment and a suction cup. To set this guy up, simply unscrew the lid, pour in enough water to fill up the chamber about halfway, and close it back up. So the suction cup attachment ended up not working very well just because it put a lot of stress on the counter when it was all hooked up, so I decided to go with the clamp instead. Unfortunately, it wasn't big enough to fit over this 40-gallon breeder's tank lip, so I ended up attaching it to the side of my light fixture. With the line coming from the regulator plugged into the bottom of the counter and the input line from the tank attached to the top, the counter is still propped at an angle, which I don't really like, but hey, it still works. The line leading from the counter that goes into the tank can have several fates. I just have the line suctioned here to the tank wall for demonstrative purposes. You can use a bunch of different methods for dissolving CO2 in your tank, so check out some of our other videos if you need a little inspiration. So now with everything set up, let's get some CO2 into this tank. The first thing you want to do is plug in the solenoid. The system won't release any gas from the tank until it's plugged in. Now start by opening the tank all the way, followed by opening the working pressure knob. Now adjust the needle valve to begin letting CO2 into the bubble counter so you can monitor the amount that's eventually going to enter your tank. Because the working pressure is pretty high in this case, I barely have to open the needle valve to get the CO2 rolling. The solenoid and the fine adjustment knob really make this product great. For the longest time, I was using a much cheaper regulator meant for homebrewing systems, and I killed more than a few fish due to its unreliability and lack of nighttime shutoff capabilities. When it comes to something like pressurized CO2 that has the potential to kill off your fish if accidents happen, I can't tell you enough how vital an investment like this can be. Knowing that myself and the fish I keep will be sleeping sound at night is well worth it. There are more than a few brands out there that make really good regulators. I've happened to always go with Aquatek mainly because of price and the reliability that I've experienced. While investing in a large pressurized CO2 system is almost always going to cost north of $150, there are some other options that are a little more DIY, and I'll be showing you guys those in an upcoming video. If you guys are interested in any of the regulators made by Aquatek, check the links in the description where you're going to find them at a very competitive price. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and check out DIYAquapros.com for more product reviews, aquarium science videos, DIY projects, and aquatic life profiles. We'll see you next time.